What really happens inside a woman's mind when the man she thought she had wrapped around her finger suddenly goes silent? When you stop answering her calls, her texts, her attempts to reel you back in? Most men never think about this side of the story, but it's one of the most powerful dynamics in relationships. And that's exactly what we're going to uncover today, how a woman actually feels if you ignore her and cut all contact. Welcome to the channel, where we break down the raw truths of male-female dynamics in a way that most people are too scared to talk about. I'm here to give you clarity, not sugarcoating. Because when you start to understand how women really think and react, you stop playing games on their terms. And you start taking back control of your life and relationships. Now let me set the stage. Most women are used to being chased. They're used to having options. They know that if one man pulls away, another will gladly step in. But here's the twist. When it's you she didn't expect to lose, when it's the man she thought she had locked down, who suddenly goes completely cold, that's when her emotions flip upside down. Suddenly she feels doubt. Suddenly she feels curiosity. And in many cases she feels a sting of regret she didn't see coming. This video isn't about being cruel or playing manipulative games. It's about teaching you what actually happens psychologically when you stop feeding into her attention cycle. By the end, you'll see why ignoring her can trigger emotions she thought she'd never feel for you again. So let's break it down, step by step. 1. Shock and confusion. The very first thing a woman feels when you ignore her and completely cut contact is shock. And I don't mean a little surprise, I mean the kind of jolt that rattles her sense of control. Women are conditioned to believe that they hold the upper hand in attention and communication. They're used to being the ones who decide when conversations start and when they end. They expect you to be there, available, and willing to play into that cycle of chasing. So when you step away and cut her off, it creates a sudden disruption in her reality. At first, she can't process it. She thinks it's temporary. She tells herself you're just busy, distracted, or trying to make her miss you. But as the silence stretches, that confusion deepens. Every unanswered message or ignored call chips away at the certainty she once had about her influence over you. This is the stage where her ego starts fighting against her emotions. She's used to being in control, but suddenly she's not. And that lack of control feels like a slap in the face. The shock is so strong because most women rarely experience a man walking away completely. They're used to men hanging around in the background, waiting for crumbs of attention, always keeping the door open. When you refuse to play that role, you stand out from every man she's ever dealt with. That's why this stage is powerful. It separates you from the pack instantly. Now here's where it gets interesting. The confusion doesn't just stay on the surface. It starts affecting her sense of identity in the relationship. She begins asking herself questions she never thought she'd ask. Did I misjudge him? Was he stronger than I thought? Why doesn't he care anymore? These questions dig deep because they force her to confront the possibility that she underestimated you. And for a woman, that's not just unsettling, it's threatening. This stage matters for men to understand because it's the foundation of everything that follows. If you rush back in too soon, if you break the silence before the shock has done its work, you rob yourself of the leverage this moment creates. But if you hold firm, you allow her confusion to grow into something much bigger. You allow her to feel the weight of your absence in a way she can't ignore. Shock and confusion may sound simple, but in reality, it's the spark that flips the entire power dynamic. It's the moment when she realizes that the game has changed. And for the first time, she's not the one holding the cards. 2. Curiosity turns into obsession. Once the initial shock wears off, something else begins to take root. Curiosity. At first, she just wonders casually why you've gone silent. But the longer you remain consistent with no contact, that curiosity grows legs. It starts following her around during the day, whispering questions she can't shut off. And here's the key. Curiosity in women can easily snowball into obsession when they feel like their usual patterns of control have been broken. Think about it this way. Women thrive on certainty in relationships. Even when things are unstable, most women feel confident that they can read a man's behavior, predict his next move, and pull him back in if they need to. But when you cut off communication and stay disciplined, you remove all her ability to predict you. Suddenly, you become the mystery, and men who are mysterious are infinitely more attractive than men who are predictable. She'll start testing in small ways. Maybe she likes one of your old photos just to see if you react. Maybe she sends a casual message like, "Hey, just checking in." If you don't bite, that curiosity intensifies. She starts to wonder, what's going on with him? Did he meet someone else? Is he happier without me? These thoughts multiply until she can't stop herself from thinking about you. For men, this is where discipline pays off. Most guys break during this stage. They see her reaching out and think, "It's working, let me respond." But the real power is in letting that curiosity build pressure. Every unanswered attempt she makes raises her emotional investment. It's almost like a reverse chase. She's the one trying to figure you out while you remain silent. What you need to understand is that curiosity is not just about wanting answers, it's about needing them. When you cut contact, you deny her the validation she's used to receiving. And for many women, that denial is unbearable. It flips a switch in her psychology. She doesn't just want to know why you disappeared, she needs to know. That need is what pushes her from mild curiosity into full-blown obsession. This is why staying silent is so effective. It forces her to sit in uncertainty, and uncertainty is uncomfortable for women who are used to being in control of male attention. The more she obsesses, the more she starts to value your presence, even though you're not around. It's ironic, but by doing nothing, you're making the strongest statement possible. When curiosity becomes obsession, she is no longer thinking about whether she wants you, she's thinking about why you're not thinking about her. That shift alone changes the entire game. 3. Ego takes a hit. After curiosity grows into obsession, the next thing that happens is even more powerful. Her ego takes a hit. And this is one of the hardest things for a woman to swallow, because her ego is directly tied to how she sees herself in relation to men. Understand this: most women, especially attractive ones, are used to being pursued. They're used to validation on demand, whether it's from social media likes, thirsty messages in their DMs, or men in real life constantly trying to win their attention. It's normal for them to believe that men will always want them, no matter what. So when you, the man she once had access to, suddenly cut all communication and show no signs of chasing, it disrupts her self-image. She starts questioning her own desirability. And for a woman, that's a direct blow to the ego. This is why ignoring her is so effective. It's not about being cruel. It's about showing her that her influence over you is not as powerful as she thought. Women thrive on the idea that they can pull you back anytime they want. They want to believe you're always within reach. But when you prove that you're not, her ego takes the punch. At first, she'll try to cover it up. She might act like she doesn't care, post on social media pretending to be unbothered, or even talk to other men to make it seem like she's moved on. But underneath the performance, there's a growing insecurity. She's not worried about the other men, she's worried about why you're different. Why didn't you stay in line like everyone else? Why weren't you afraid to walk away? And here's where the lesson for men comes in. Too many guys ruin this stage by running back the moment they see her ego crack. They think her reaching out, or her showing signs of missing them, means it's time to jump in and reclaim her. But if you do that too soon, you hand her ego the win. You validate her belief that she can still control the outcome. The true power comes when you let her ego sit in that discomfort. The longer she feels it, the more she begins to reassess her opinion of you. This stage is not about revenge, it's about respect. When her ego takes a hit, she begins to realize you're not just another guy orbiting around her, you're a man who values himself enough to walk away. And that's where attraction is reborn, because respect is the foundation of desire. By holding your ground, you turn what looks like silence into the loudest statement possible. You're telling her without words, I don't need your validation, I don't need your approval, and I'm not afraid to let you go. That's the kind of energy that makes her ego crack and makes her see you in a completely different light. 4. Regret starts creeping in. After the shock, the curiosity, and the bruised ego, there comes a stage that often catches women off guard: regret. This is the moment when she begins replaying the relationship in her head and realizing what she may have lost. And for many women, that regret hits harder than they expect because it doesn't come right away. It sneaks in slowly, in quiet moments when she least expects it. Let's put this into perspective with an example. Imagine a woman who walked away from her boyfriend because she thought he wasn't exciting enough. Or maybe she felt like she could do better. At first, she is confident in her decision. She thinks she'll be fine because in her mind, he'll still be available if she ever wants him back. But weeks pass, and he hasn't called, hasn't texted, hasn't chased. Instead, he's silent, living his life as if she doesn't exist. That's when regret starts to creep in. She remembers the way he treated her, the effort he put in, the little things that set him apart from other men. Suddenly, those qualities she took for granted don't seem so common anymore. And because you're not around to remind her, her mind begins to exaggerate them. What was once just normal starts to feel irreplaceable. This is the danger of underestimating a man who knows his value. When you cut contact and stay firm, you force her to reflect on her decisions without you interfering. And in that silence, she has no choice but to compare you with the men around her. Most of the time, that comparison doesn't work in her favor. She realizes the grass wasn't greener. It was just different. Regret is powerful because it shifts the emotional balance. Instead of her feeling like she made the right call, she starts doubting herself. And here's the lesson for men. Regret is not created by you begging, chasing, or trying to prove your worth. Regret is born when you walk away and let her experience the absence of your presence. That's what makes her question whether she made a mistake. Now, this doesn't mean every woman will come running back. Some will bury the regret and try to move on. But even then, the feeling lingers. That little voice inside her will whisper, "What if I let go of the best thing I had?" And that voice is enough to change the way she sees you forever. By letting regret creep in naturally, you gain the one thing most men never achieve after a breakup: leverage. Not because you manipulated her, but because you respected yourself enough to walk away. And in the end, that's what makes her regret losing you in the first place. 5. Jealousy and insecurity surface. Once regret sets in, the next wave that often hits a woman is jealousy and insecurity. This is when she starts imagining you with someone else, living your life, moving on, and giving another woman the attention she once had. Even if she doesn't know for sure, her mind fills in the blanks. That uncertainty alone is enough to make her feel insecure. But here's where many men go wrong. When they sense that a woman is getting jealous, they see it as their chance to prove a point. They start posting things online just to provoke her. They answer her calls and drop hints about talking to someone new. They think by fueling her jealousy, they'll make her come running back faster. The problem with this is simple. It looks like you're still playing her game. If you're going out of your way to make her jealous, you're still showing that she has power over your emotions. That's the wrong approach. The right way to handle this stage is to live your life genuinely without trying to rub it in her face. If she sees you happy, active, and focused without her, it naturally creates jealousy. She doesn't need a show. Her imagination will do the work for you. When you remain silent and detached, every unanswered question in her head makes her more insecure. That insecurity is what drives her to chase, not staged attempts at making her jealous. Another mistake men make is engaging when she lashes out. She might throw accusations like, "Oh, I bet you're with someone else now," or "You probably never cared about me." The wrong move is to defend yourself or argue. That only gives her the validation she's fishing for. The right response is calm and minimal. If you respond at all, you keep it short. I'm just focused on myself. That's it. No explanations, no justifications. Remember, jealousy is an emotional reaction, not a logical one. If you feed it with drama, you risk losing your frame. If you let her sit in it, she's forced to deal with her own insecurities. And that's where the power lies. The truth is, a woman's jealousy is not a signal for you to act. It's a signal that your silence is working. It means she's thinking about you, comparing herself to others, and wondering if she lost her place in your life. Your job isn't to manipulate that feeling, but to stay steady while she feels it. By avoiding the wrong moves, provoking, bragging, or over-explaining, and sticking to the right ones, living authentically, keeping calm, and saying less, you maintain control. That's when jealousy and insecurity stop being weapons against you and start working in your favor. 6. Power shifts to you. Up until this point, everything that's happened, her shock, her curiosity, her bruised ego, her regret, and even her jealousy, has been leading to one powerful outcome: the shift of control. And here's the part most men don't realize. When you ignore her and cut all contact, you're not just creating emotional reactions in her, you're quietly shifting the balance of power in the relationship dynamic. See, in the beginning, she held the power. She was the one who felt secure, knowing you'd always be there to answer, to chase, to fix things when they went wrong. That security made her confident, maybe even a little careless. But when you cut her off, the script flips. Suddenly, she's the one overthinking. She's the one checking her phone. She's the one wondering what you're doing and why you're not doing it with her. That's the shift. And it's one of the most valuable lessons you can learn as a man. Power in relationships doesn't come from control. It comes from independence. The moment you stop needing her validation is the moment she feels the need for yours. But here's where you need to stay sharp. Many men gain this power only to give it away too quickly. They get excited when she finally reaches out, or when she shows signs of missing them, and they rush back in. The problem with that is it proves her right, that all it took was a little attention from her to pull you back. If you do that, the power shift reverses immediately. The right move is patience. Power isn't about making her suffer. It's about showing that your life is full and complete without her. If she comes back into your world, it has to be on your terms. Not because you were waiting for her, but because you chose it from a position of strength. Think of it like this. When a woman realizes that you won't collapse without her, she sees you differently. You're not another man orbiting her like a planet around the sun. You're your own universe, and that energy is magnetic. It makes her respect you. And respect is the foundation of attraction. The real lesson here is this: when the power shifts to you, don't waste it trying to prove something to her. Use it to build yourself, to live with more purpose, to strengthen your own standards. That's how you maintain the shift permanently, because once a woman sees you as a man who doesn't need her, but chooses carefully who he lets in, she will never look at you the same way again. And that is the real beauty of silence. It doesn't just change her behavior, it changes the entire dynamic. 7. She questions her own value. By the time she reaches this stage, the silence has already done its work. She's gone through shock, curiosity, jealousy, regret, and the realization that the power dynamic has shifted. What happens next is perhaps the most unexpected part for her. She starts questioning her own value. And this is where things become very interesting for you as a man, because it flips the dynamic completely. Most women walk through life with the assumption that they're the prize. They believe they're the ones who decide who is worthy, and men simply compete for their attention. Society reinforces this every day, through social media, through the constant validation they receive, and through the way men often position themselves as the ones chasing. But when you cut contact and stay consistent, you disrupt that belief system. Suddenly, instead of asking whether you were good enough for her, she starts asking whether she was good enough for you. This self-doubt is a game changer. she begins replaying her behavior in the relationship, wondering if she pushed you too far, if she took you for granted, or if she lost something valuable she might never get back. And the longer you remain detached, the deeper that questioning goes. It's no longer about you. It's about her perception of herself. Now, let's be clear. This isn't about trying to destroy her self-esteem. That's not the point. The point is to understand that by walking away, you force her to reflect on her actions in a way she never would if you kept chasing. If you had stayed available, she wouldn't question herself. She would have assumed she was still in control. But your silence leaves space for her insecurities to surface, and that's what makes her reevaluate everything. Here's where men must stay disciplined. The biggest mistake would be to step in and reassure her too soon, to comfort her when she's finally holding herself accountable. If you rush in, you take away the growth this stage is designed to create. The right thing to do is nothing. Let her sit with those questions. Let her reflect on whether she truly brought value to your life. And here's the beautiful part. When a woman starts questioning her own value, she also starts to raise her effort. She becomes more intentional, more careful, and more invested, because she doesn't want to lose the chance to prove her worth. That's when you see the shift in her behavior, and it only happens because you had the strength to walk away. By the end of this stage, she isn't asking, "Is he good enough for me?" She's asking, "Am I good enough for him?" And that single switch in perspective is what cements your position as the man in control of the dynamic. When you ignore a woman and cut all contact, it sets off a chain reaction she never expects. Shock, curiosity, a bruised ego, regret, jealousy, the shift of power, and finally, self-doubt. Each stage works together to flip the dynamic and force her to see you in a new light. The key is discipline. Don't break the silence out of weakness. Don't rush back in for validation. By holding your ground, you prove your value without saying a word. Remember, respect always comes before attraction, and the man who can walk away is the man who truly wins.